Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of UTalks. I am absolutely delighted to have you be a part of this conversation today. As a reminder, I'm your host, Dr. Laci Coppins-Robbins, Executive Director for Milwaukee Teacher Education Center, now known as Urban Learning Collaborative, ULC. This is yet another chance for us to meet one of the recipients for this year's 2024 Fall Ball awardees. As a reminder, if you haven't done so already, be sure to like, share, and subscribe so that you never miss a moment of these amazing conversations that we are having with educators, education adjacent individuals, those who are passionate about the field of education and seeing things move to the next level. Today, I'm so absolutely delighted to have Mr. Joshua Capodarco. He is actually a current teacher that is the agricultural educator, but most importantly, he is this year's 2024 Alum of the Year Award recipient. Mr. Capodarco, I'm so delighted that you would join us today, that you were able to make your way here. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and I appreciate the award and just the chance to talk with you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So tell us a little bit more about yourself. Those are viewers, our listeners who may not be familiar with you, with your background, and with agriculture as a field of education. Tell us about you. How did you end up here in this role and field today?
Oh, it's been a long and winding road to get in a classroom. I didn't start off with this as my life goal, um, but through the things I've done in life, it's really brought me to this point, and this is the spot I'm supposed to be. So, originally from Wisconsin, I grew up in southeastern Wisconsin. I grew up in Kenosha, right in the city, right in town, and with no real background. You know, the things I did with as a kid with my friends was just biking around town. Um, no real background. Like my parents didn't grow up on a farm. You have to go back to my grandparents who had some hobby farming. They did some more outdoorsy things, but very much a city kid. And so I grew up there, did my thing, graduated, went to college. At the time, I still wasn't on this path to think about agriculture. I was doing other things. But when I graduated college, I was kind of sick of being stuck in
Mm.
books. And so on a whim, I decided to start working on farms. I moved to Virginia, and I started working out there. And that's when I fell in love with this field. So through a lot of experiences working on farms in different parts of the states, I really felt like this was the thing I was meant to do. I was really enamored with the work, really inspired by learning myself because I didn't have the background. As an adult, I had to learn all these things. And so did that for a while in different parts of the US, came back to Wisconsin because I had an opportunity to work at Growing Power, which was a nonprofit farm just on the north side of Milwaukee. So I worked there for a number of years, and it was like a really great marriage of not just agriculture, but social justice work, a lot of the things I had been thinking about and the work I'd been doing around myself and in my community when I was in college. I worked there for a number of years and then left Growing Power and worked at another farm in Rockford, Illinois. And one of the components of working on that farm was on-farm education. And so I realized I love doing the work, but I love teaching people about the work more so.
Mm.
And so after that, I decided, if I have the ability, of the opportunity, I want to do this. I want to be in a classroom. I want to teach people. I want to share my passion. And so that's what brought me to, at the time, Milwaukee Teacher Education Center, where I got my initial license to become an agriculture teacher. And I've loved it ever since. Currently teaching in Sun Prairie. And every day it's great. It's a lot of work and it's a lot to balance. And I teach a lot of different things over the course of the day. But I love it. I really do.
Right. And so how did you hear when you made this decision, like, yes, I want to be a teacher? How did you hear about MTech or the ULC initial certification program?
So initially, trying to get an education at the time, I was looking into things online, talking to people. And at that time, nowadays there's what are called experience-based licenses. But those didn't exist when I was first looking into getting an education.
Mm,
So I kind of looked around, a lot of options required going back to school full time. And then for me at the time, I was looking for something I could do where I could work and be in school at the same time. It just made sense financially for
yeah.
me. So MTech was attractive for that. They also helped with um, getting you connected with the school. And it was just kind of fortuitous too that
Mm,
there's one school in the city of Milwaukee Public Schools, that teaches agriculture education, and that's Vincent High School. Um, and so my wife actually came across a posting, and I don't even know where she found it, about that they were looking for agriculture teachers. And so
mm.
I actually went for sort of an informational interview with the principal. Um, it's very upfront. Like, I haven't done this before. I haven't been a teacher, but I feel that this is where I need to be. And so with sort of talking to them and then moving to a formal interview,
Mhm.
um, it was easy for me to look at MTech and say, this is a great program because I can work, I can learn on the job, and gain those skills and really gain the classroom management skills that are going to help me, bring my message to students.
I love that. And shout out to the wife for looking out for you, and Vincent High School, which definitely still hosts their agriculture program. It's known as one of like the top ones in the state, I believe, at this point. So that's really exciting for them as well. And so as you were going through this whole process, what barriers did you face in your effort and how did you overcome them?
So, I mean, I think a huge barrier is one of the barriers I think about in my own personal life is just relatability, right?
Mm,
Growing up in the city, not being surrounded by these things, you see them at a distance, right?
mhm.
In Wisconsin, it's not hard to drive by farm fields. It's not hard to see cows, but
Right.
to know them, to care about them, to see value in your lived experience, like
Mhm.
that's a harder reach. And that's the same thing whether I was at Milwaukee Public Schools or where I'm at in Sun Prairie, right? These things are close by, but they're not, we can live our life without having to think about them, right?
Mhm.
And so for me, I think the big connection, and the connection that continues to stay, is food, because I've lived X number of years before I knew how milk was like actually brought out of a cow, right?
Yeah.
But we all eat, right? And
Mhm.
so starting with that, the reason I care about things like how animals are raised is because I like the food that they make, right?
Mhm.
And when I go to the grocery store, there's a ton of options of things, right? If I go to any grocery store, there's not just one brand of milk, one milk that costs a certain thing. There's a lot. And so starting with that, it's really relatable.
Mm.
Students and myself, right? Those are the same things I do on a daily basis when I go grocery shopping. What should I buy?
Mhm.
Why is that one say one thing and costs a different price? Why is that one different? That one's got a fancy, cool label and it looks pretty, but is it worth the price?
Mm.
And so I think that's the bridge that brings us to other larger conversations around whether it's animal husbandry, anything else. Like,
Yeah.
those, food is what connects us.
And so what about if we're going to talk a little bit more about food, I don't see how we talk about food without talking about food insecurity and food deserts and thinking about urban communities and marginalized groups. So let's talk a little bit about the opportunity gaps that are there and how being connected with ULC or with your community, what can people be doing to make a difference about that?
Well, I mean, I think back in my own personal life, one of the reasons I came back to Milwaukee was to be involved in growing power, because that was their focus, right?
Mhm.
Getting food in communities where there are food deserts, right? There's food insecurity. When I was working at Growing Power on the north side, right, it was several bus stops to get to the nearest pick and save or like box store, right?
Mhm.
There's a lot of little places you can kind of get snacks, box meals, but to get fresh produce, that was hard. And so those are things that we talk about in my classes too, right? What food is where, who has access to it. We focus on those justice issues. But I think, since my time at Growing Power and since that time, that those needs have stayed the same, right?
Mhm.
I look around the community I'm in, Sun Prairie, it's pretty affluent. Um, but there's definitely pockets of areas, right, where there's not access to that fresh food, or you have to travel a large distance to get those things, right?
Yeah.
So we've done work here with an area food pantry, trying to connect those bridges. And we do things when I teach things in class. My focus is because in my personal life, I don't grow acres of corn, I don't grow acres of food. I think about what could I do
Mhm.
for myself and my neighbors and my friends. And so we do things like we grow microgreens, which you can grow right on your countertop at home.
Oh.
We do things like hydroponics, which you can grow indoors year round.
Mhm.
Um, so those are the things that, again, build bridges for students, and then extend it to our community because not everyone has access to land, not everyone has access um, to that background knowledge too.
No, that's great. And really getting us to start to think about how we can plug in, regardless as to what your background might be. This particular focus for us with the gala and now known as the Fall Ball, all of the proceeds are looking to help to support the Haberman Tyler program. And this program is really centered around literacy and being able to create opportunities as well as professional development opportunities for participants who would come through our ULC programming or at our school. So, when you think about your work in relationship to literacy, how does it show up in context to what you're doing on the day to day and focus and teaching as an agricultural educator?
I mean, we talk constantly about disciplinary literacy. You know, when we talk about these things, there's specific words we use. Like I just dropped hydroponics, which is one way of growing plants. And so it's easy to assume, right, that everyone's speaking the same language, that these things, but we need to build in those literacy skills,
Mhm.
build in that vocab so that we can speak the same language. I mean, like as I think through some of the things that we do in our classrooms, right, it's really complicated. And there might be words that these students have never experienced
Mm,
before, right? Or
mhm.
even words that most people haven't because it's unfamiliar, it's technical. A lot of it's jargon, right? A
Yeah.
lot of it's just hyper specific, academic. And so we need to break down those barriers and we need to start to make it relatable.
Mhm.
Um, we talk in a lot of our classes about things like soil or raising fish because we have those things here in school, and it's just really making it relatable, not just the words but the concepts too.
Mhm.
Like I just taught a soil unit, right? And soil's like, students are like, why do I care? It's just soil, it's dirt, right? And so when we learn about it, we start with candy as a model. We use different candies to represent different things. And so then, that's a hook. It helps make it relatable. Um, but that's what you need because if you just walk into a classroom, just like if I walk into a meeting, people just start throwing words out that I don't understand, I'm going to tune out, right?
Mhm.
I'm going to say, ooh, they're talking over my head, or maybe I'm not supposed to be here. Maybe I'm in the wrong spot.
Mhm.
Um, and that's not what we want to do in the classroom. When I think back to my time at MTech, now ULC, and I think through those experiences, I just had this realization the other day. Actually, I went to a training, and it was for like a program, and it was like, here's how we teach. And I'm sitting in this training, and one of the teachers looks at me, is this new stuff? Like all of these strategies and all these things. And I was like, well, I don't know. It might be new, but when I did MTech years ago, this is just what we were told was good teaching. Like this was the models we were presented. These were the things that I learned as a new teacher. Like it was what was the ground floor, right?
Mhm.
So I really appreciate that MTech did that. They instilled in me great instructional strategies, great practices that I use to this day. And those are the baseline that as I thinking about, all right, what do I want my students to know, right? I come back to those same things um, year after year. And then I think about the cohort. It was really great to be there with other people going through it because most of us were new to this. We were new to
Mhm.
education. Um, and so we got to bounce ideas off each other. We got
Mhm.
the ability to say, hey, I'm doing this thing in a classroom, but I don't know for sure if it's going to work. And sometimes someone said, oh, hey, I do this way. What do you think about that? And anytime you have that professional community, it's great. You can just bounce ideas off
Yeah.
each other. Um, and sometimes put yourself out there, right? You can be vulnerable and say, I did this thing, it didn't work, and I want feedback because I want to grow, I want to get
Mhm,
better.
mhm.
And it's a better space to do that with people you know, people that are going through the same things, than just sort of, it's harder to do that, to feel vulnerable, to do that with staff you don't know if you're
Right.
new. And mentors were great for that too. They were pivotal in coming in and saying, "Hey, I saw you try this thing. Hey, let's reflect on how well it went,
Mhm.
and then let's see what improvements we can make." And they were great in that.
Yeah. Do you stay connected or are you connected still with any of your classmates, your cohort members, or your mentor, the assessor that worked with you?
Not fully, mostly through social media. You know, a lot of the people that
Good
came
old
through the
social media.
cohort with me, I see things on social
Mhm.
media. You know, and I think some of it's proximity. I've moved since I got certified, so I
Mhm.
kind of, this is my third district that I've been at, and I moved just for like life purposes. Um, and so I don't stay as connected with them on that. I did reach out to my mentor a while back. I was fortunate enough to receive a Cole Educational Fellowship,
Yay.
and so I reached out to my mentor and just thanked him for, instilling in me the things that I felt like made me worthy, or allowed me to get to that point. It allowed me
Absolutely.
to be
Absolutely.
considered for that fellowship.
Well, congratulations to you. That's very, very exciting. We've definitely been in partner with Kohl's as well, and they just are wonderful when it comes to supporting communities. And now you are the 2024 Fall Ball recipient of Alum of the Year. How does it feel? What are you thinking? Please share it with us now.
I mean, I'm overjoyed. Yeah, I'm honored. I appreciate it. I'm humbled by it. As I walk around my classroom, I just feel like a teacher. It's easy just to say, "Oh yeah, this is what we do." We meet kids where they're at. We work with them. We provide opportunities. I'm really appreciative of Urban Learning Collaborative, of that support. Looking forward to the ball, obviously. Explained to my wife, I was like, I think this is pretty fancy, so I think we need to, like, not just show up, but we got to prepare for this. So we're both really excited.
Yeah, definitely bring your dancing shoes.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, we're excited to have you come back and bring your wife. It is definitely going to be an evening of celebration. We are really excited because we also are having an opportunity to bring back previous winners as well to be a part of the night. And it is at the beautiful St. Kate's Arts Hotel. If you're listening and it's before October 20th, there's still opportunity to get tickets as well. So it's not too late to still be able to join us. Or even if you're planning for 2025, we'll be there. Can you share a success story from your work that highlights the impact of urban communities? What's a success story that you'd like to pass on?
So I think back to my time at Vincent High School. It was a different school. So when I came in, there was this idea that we're gonna reopen the agriculture program in a school on the north side of Milwaukee. And it was a risk, right? Because there was a lot of people in the district saying, hey, there's, it's risky. Students might not find connections. Students might not find value in this. Families might not find value in this. So those first few years, it was really sort of a proving ground of like,
Mhm.
will this work? And I think the success was the students that came through that. The
Mhm.
students that walked into those classrooms not knowing what to expect, not knowing anything about animals, and then coming back year after year and saying like, this is amazing, like I never even thought about this. And then connecting that to, hey, you're thinking about this, like, or hey, we learned a little bit about this. These opportunities exist. For example, when I was teaching about plants, like the city of Milwaukee employs people all over the city to manage parks,
Mhm.
right? Connecting that career aspect. I had people come in to do arborist demonstrations, right? Just saying like, hey, there's careers in this, and you might not see it because you
Yeah.
walk around every day and you just think, oh, those trees have always been there, right? Those trees in the boulevards, whatever. but there are career connections. So I
Yeah.
think that Vincent's still around. I still keep in contact with my coworkers there. They're doing great things. They got hydroponic systems, they got outdoor gardens, they got excuse me, they got animals, they have cattle in a shed in
Really?
north side of Milwaukee. Yeah, it's
Wow.
great.
I had no idea that all of that was happening there at Vincent. But that's really exciting for those students. Can you share with us any upcoming, as we start to wrap up our time together, it goes so fast, but any upcoming projects or initiatives that you're excited about that you'd like to be able to share with us?
Yeah, one thing that's been that it's just started here at Sun Prairie is I've been working with some staff members, um, talking about this idea of food access,
Mm,
and we've been talking about creating. I don't want to so creating a free store, right?
mhm,
So we acknowledge that not every student that comes in here has the same access to food. Not every student that um, comes in here and has a meal the night before, right?
mm,
And so our goal is to open a store, and we're really intentional about calling it a store because we don't want to perpetuate a stigma associated with, oh, I need food because I don't have it at home, but
mm,
opening up a space that any student can come into and get food throughout the day.
mhm,
Um, and then providing snacks for the classrooms too. And it doesn't matter if you, you know, had a full meal the night before, you didn't, that food should be accessible for everyone. So we're working on those details, trying to figure that out. Um, but it's really exciting, really hopeful that every student that walks through these doors can have food whenever they need it. Doesn't matter, and there's no stigma associated with it. That every kid can just know if I need a snack, I just ask my teacher. There's a snack, right? If I need
love
to
that.
go to the store to get something, I can go to the store and get something.
I love that. I love that. And I really appreciate the fact that you are ensuring that those students who are there are being maintained and being remaining whole and preserved in their space of honor and respect, right? They don't have to diminish themselves to come and be a part and to just to get a necessity that we all need, right? We all need something to eat. So as we start to close out our time together, someone who's watching or someone who's listening, how can they or what would you recommend to plug in if they were looking to plug into ULC or plug into the community and connect with you or to follow your journey or just to plug into their own community? What's one thing you'd recommend that they start to do?
So I think plugging into their communities, there's lots of great organizations doing lots of great work. And if we're coming back to food, right? Every city I've been in, there's been community members that have been saying, hey, we want to make sure people have access to food. When I was living in Portage, I worked closely with the food pantry, and we started a free school store at Portage. I know there's great things in Milwaukee that exist. Um, I know close to us in Madison, there's a great organization, Urban Triage, that does community work around urban agriculture, right? So these places exist, but it's sometimes hard to find them, right? Sometimes hard to see the people doing the work. Um, but there's lots of people doing
Mhm.
things. And in terms of my work, things that I'm doing, I think you'll mostly find me through FFA, which is a student organization. So along with the things I do in the classroom, I take students out and do lots of stuff. So the Wisconsin Association of FFA, they do really cool stuff across the state. So I'll have students take them, and so you might see me on some of those things, maybe some of their Facebook posts with my students doing things all across the state.
Wonderful. Awesome. Well, we definitely look forward to having a chance to connect with you on the big night when you will be recognized as the 2024 Urban Learning Collaborative ULC Alum of the Year. I say again, congratulations to you. Thank you for representing our organization in such a dynamic way out in the community and with your school day in and day out. Your students and your school community are so fortunate to be able to have you to be there and educating every day. Thank you, Mr. Capodarco. Darko.
so much. Yeah,
So,
thank you so much.
yeah, so thanks again for being a part of today's conversation. Again, remember, if you are looking for a way to be able to plug in and connect with us here at Urban Learning Collaborative, like, share, and subscribe, because there is another individual, another leader who would be curious about today's conversation. We say congratulations again to all of our 2024 Fall Ball recipients. Stay tuned for additional conversations so that you can learn more about what's happening here. And as I always say, remember, leadership doesn't begin with me, it begins with you. Until next time, I'll see you on the next episode of UTalks. I'm Dr. Laci Coppins-Robbins, Executive Director of Urban Learning Collaborative, and you're listening to UTalks. As a reminder, you can join us here every week so that you can learn more about what's the latest when it comes to leadership. This particular podcast includes various groups, solo episodes, as well as interviews where you get a chance to hear not only from Dr. Clavon Bird, but also myself, as well as individuals within our community that are leading the next level of leadership. So, how can you be a part? Well, be sure to like, share, and subscribe so that you can stay up to date with everything that's happening at the ULC and in the ULC community. We love to have you be a part of this. So remember, applications are continuously rolling for that you can either be a part of our school community, MESA, you can join and be a part of our teaching community in one of our teacher certification programs, or you can even make the decision that you want to advance and ascend into leadership by being a part of our Leadership Develop You. As we always say, and never forget, leadership doesn't begin with me, it begins with you.